In my previous life, after my cousin learned that someone was following me, she actually stuffed a love letter to the stalker, saying that I liked perverted love. That night, I was broken into my house and violated by the stalker. When I wanted to call the police, he scolded me for pretending to be innocent. You wrote the letter yourself saying you liked me. You wanted to sleep with me. And now you still dare to play the game of calling the police with me? In the end, I was immersed in an oiled room and suffocated to death. When I opened my eyes again, I went back to the day when I told my cousin that there was a stalker following me. This time, I told my cousin that the stalker was Blake, the wealthy second generation that my cousin had always liked. Upon hearing this, my cousin immediately offered to help me. Cousin, why don't you give me the contact information of that pervert? I promised to scold him away for you. But I clearly heard her inner thoughts. This is such a good opportunity to confess to Blake. I can't let him slip through my fingers. Once I sleep with Blake, I'll be the wife of a wealthy family. But she had no idea that the contact information I gave her was the number of that psychopathic murderer. In this life, I want to see how my cousin, who confesses to a pervert, will die. The sticky oil poured into my nose and mouth. I reached out my hands and grabbed wildly. But in the end, I still died of terrifying suffocation. Sis, I went out a lol summe. What are you doing? You're hurting me. Hearing the voice, I opened my eyes. And the gasping sound caused by the feeling of suffocation was still going on. But my head wasn't in the oil drum. Then I looked at my cousin whose face I had scratched beside me. And I realized that I had been reborn. We were talking nicely. Why did you suddenly grab people randomly? You scratched my face. I instinctively said sorry. But then my cousin changed to a flattering tone. By the way, you just said that there's a stalker following you every day. Is that true or false? Hearing this familiar line, I realized that I had been reborn to the day when I told my cousin that someone was following me. But this time, I decided to hide the truth. Actually, it's not really a stalker. It's just that a wealthy second generation named Blake always wants to be with me. I refused. And now he pesters me every day. Blake? This name sounds familiar. I sneered in my heart. How could she not be familiar with it? In my previous life, I accidentally came across my cousin's social media account. It was full of fantasies about marrying into a wealthy family. Among them, the person she fantasized about the most was Blake from the Leo family. Every time Blake posted on Weibo, she would repost it and leave a message. My dear husband is so awesome. If someone could marry you, it would be a blessing that they've cultivated over 8 lifetimes. Even when Blake said that he didn't want to get married and just wanted to play with women for a lifetime, she would support him with both hands and feet. My man is so handsome. Of course, he shouldn't be tied down to just one woman. Husband, would you consider playing with me for your next woman? Chloe's mindless fanaticism towards Blake attracted the dissatisfaction of many netizens. This girl, you're a woman yourself. Yet you're cheering for a man who only plays with women. Isn't that a bit too much? What's too much? Although Blake is ugly, he's rich. I think you're just jealous and saying sour grapes because you can't have him. And netizen replied, have you gotten this rotten grape? Chloe sneered, one day I will get it and make you so jealous. Thinking of Chloe's dream of marrying into a wealthy family and her fanaticism towards Blake in the previous life. So in this life, I told her that the stalker was Blake. This move is called luring the enemy into a trap. Sure enough, as soon as she heard it was Blake, my cousin became as excited as a chicken injected with stimulants. She quickly took out her phone, swiped a couple of times, and found a bunch of ugly photos of Blake. Cousin, is the Blake you're talking about like this? Take a look and help me confirm it. I pretended to look at it seriously and said a bit reluctantly, I'm not sure. He always follows me from a distance. And I can't see him clearly. My cousin was a bit disappointed. Then how are you sure his name is Blake, and that he's a wealthy second generation? I smiled slyly. I had been waiting for her to ask me this question. I took out my phone. At first, he said he was Blake. I didn't know who this person was at all. Later, I accidentally saw an account named Blake on the internet. When I saw that he was the heir of the Leo family, I thought that this Blake surely couldn't be the Blake who was following me. A wealthy second generation can have any woman he wants. How could he do such a perverted thing? But later, I deliberately dragged out my words and played for time. Chloe was already impatient. But later what? Cousin, wait, hurry up and tell me. But later, I found that the pictures posted by this Blake highly coincided with my whereabouts. What do you mean by highly coinciding with your whereabouts? My cousin Chloe continued to ask. Stop playing for time. Hurry up and tell me. Because Chloe was too eager to verify. The nails on the hand that was gripping my arm dug into my flesh. Sigh, having fulfilled my sigh. I didn't want to tell you originally. After all, he has a certain status. If I tell you this, you mustn't tell anyone else. I promise I won't tell anyone. This kind of thing will only be known to you. Me, heaven, and earth. That's good. Only then did I pretend to be relieved and took out my phone. Flipping to my WeChat moments. Look. This is a photo of me playing at Disneyland on March 8th. The shooting time was 1200 in the morning. And I was just taking a photo with that float. I then flipped to Blake's VIBO. Look. This is a photo posted by Blake on March 8th. It's also that float. And the time is also 1200. My cousin looked carefully. What you said is indeed right. But maybe it's just a coincidence. I flipped to another photo in my WeChat moments. On March 12th. I didn't do well in the exam. So I took a taxi to the seaside in the morning to relax. And then I took a photo here at the White Lighthouse. As soon as I finished speaking, my cousin shrieked as if she had seen a ghost. I know. On March 12th, Blake also posted a photo of the seaside in the morning. And it was also the lighthouse taken from this angle. Cousin, the person following you is really Blake. He actually likes you. Ooh. Blake is from the richest and most powerful family in Shanghai. You're so lucky to be followed by him in this life. Chloe's face was full of envy and jealousy. But I said, I'm not interested in marrying into a wealthy family at all. There are so many ways to pursue a girl. But he has to do this stalking thing. Just looking at it. This person is really perverted. Let him pursue whoever he wants. Anyway, heading fulfill my obsession. I'm not interested. When my cousin heard that I wasn't interested, she sneered. Who knows if you really hate it or are just pretending? Maybe you're really happy inside and told me this just to show off in front of me. I quickly shook my head and explained, Cousin. Believe me. I really don't want to have any contact with such a person. For me, having fulfilled my obsession. Currently, having fulfilled my studying well and preparing for the postgraduate entrance examination is my most important task. Chloe said impatiently. If you're really annoyed by Blake following you, then give me his number. I'm not like you. A good student. I'm the well-known female boss in our vocational high school. Give me his number and watch me scold him until he's completely humiliated. I promise he won't pester you anymore. When I heard this, I was overjoyed. Why did the fish take the bait so quickly? But I still had to pretend on my face. I tried to squeeze out a suspicious expression and said, Cousin, will you really scold him away from me and make him stop following me? Before she could speak, I teased again, or are you going to throw yourself at this pervert once you get his number? Chloe was indignant. What are you talking about? Although Chloe, like men, I hate men who pester others the most. So what if he's a wealthy second generation? Even if he's the richest man in the world, if he has this perverted hobby of stalking people, Chloe, will still scold and drive him away one by one. I won't tolerate it. That's good. I was still worried that you wouldn't care that he's a stalker just because Blake is rich. As I said this, I immediately gratefully showed Chloe the number of the stalker who had violated me in the previous life. Chloe immediately saved it to her phone. While saving it, she also assured me, Cousin, leave this matter to me. You can rest assured. I promise to make Blake disappear from your world. I pretended to show a gratified smile. With a sister like you, how can I not be at ease? I'm very relieved. But the next second, I heard her inner thoughts. Emily, having fulfilled my obsession. This idiot. She doesn't want the wealthy second generation who comes to her on a silver platter and instead insists on taking the postgraduate entrance examination. Even if you get a doctorate degree, you might not earn more than someone who marries into a wealthy family. Great. Now that the information of this wealthy second generation is in my hands, with my beauty and figure, I can win him over in no time. What's more, just because you got into Harvard University, everyone says you're the pride of the Emily family. Just you wait. Once I use my means to marry into the Leo family, you, a mere wage earner. We'll see who still treats you as the treasure of the Emily family. Looking at the smile on Chloe's lips, I smiled sinister lie. Marry into a wealthy family? In your dreams. The number that Chloe carefully saved wasn't that of a wealthy second generation, but the number of the stalker who had violated and killed me in the previous life. Looking at Chloe's complacent smile, I sneered and clenched my phone tightly. I can't wait to see Chloe send herself into the tiger's mouth with her own hands. As soon as Chloe got the number I gave her, she immediately sent a text message to the stalking murderer. Brother, I know you've been following me. Actually, I like you too. It's just that my parents are very strict. So I didn't dare to respond to you. Would you like to come to my house tonight? My parents are rarely not at home today. Unexpectedly, in this life, Chloe was still using my information to send a confession to the stalker. After Chloe sent the text message, she thought excitedly, Blake has always been promoting that he won't get married or have children. But if I date him, I can not only buy all kinds of luxury goods, but also gets several million yuan in breakup fees when we break up. This is definitely much better than me, a vocational high school graduate, going out to work. Of course, the purpose of sleeping with him isn't to date him. The main purpose is to borrow his sperm to have a son. You know, the chairman of the Leo family has said that whichever woman is capable of getting pregnant with a child of the Leo family, he, as the grandfather, will give at least 30 million yuan in child support every month. 30 million yuan. That's enough for me to live on for a lifetime in just 1 month. I heard Chloe's inner thoughts, which were firmer than a diamond. It's such a rare opportunity to get in touch with Blake. I must get him in my hands as soon as possible. Soon, the stalking murderer on the other side replied to my cousin. You know I've been following you? Aren't you afraid? And do you want me to come to your house tonight? Is there really such a good thing? My cousin wasn't afraid at all. Well, after all, she didn't know that the person on the other side was a stalking murderer. So naturally she wasn't afraid. She just thought that the wealthy second-generation young Master Blake was sending her a message. I'm not afraid. I like guys like you. Bro. I want to have fun with you. The message Chloe replied was full of flirtation. But I've checked. You used another number before. Why didn't you send me a message with that number? I was shocked. In my previous life, I only knew that this stalker was following me. But I didn't know that this pervert had even investigated my phone number so clearly. This pervert is really a terrifying beast. I wonder how my cousin will die a miserable death at his hands in this life. Before I could think more, Chloe's inner thoughts came to me again. Oh, how could a good student like me send a confession message to you with my usual number? If someone found out, I'd be so ashamed. I didn't expect you to look so serious. But you're actually so playful in your heart. Alright. Don't close the door tonight. I'll come to you. Through Chloe's inner thoughts, I read all the messages sent by the stalker. But I immediately realized something was wrong. The stalker said he would come to the door at night. But he had been following me before. Chloe said he could come to her house. But she didn't mention the address of her home. Then wouldn't the stalker sneak into my house just like in the previous life? This won't do. I have to fix this bug quickly. So I thought for a while and sent a text message to Chloe. What should I do? That person contacted me again and asked if I had changed my mobile phone number. Even more incredibly, he said he would come to meet me at Maoming Community at 8 o'clock tonight. As soon as I finished speaking, the next second I received Chloe's inner thoughts. It seems that this Blake isn't an easy target. He actually doesn't believe that my cousin has changed her number. After replying to me, he sent a message to her number again. Fortunately, having fulfilled my ancestor, This idiot of a cousin reports everything to me. Otherwise, if Blake gets into my cousin's bed, wouldn't all my plans go down the drain? After a while, Chloe replied to me, "Cousin, I sent a message to that pervert in your name, saying that you'd changed your number. This way, having fulfilled my obsession, he won't harass you anymore in the future. However, I didn't expect that this damned pervert is quite smart and knows to send a message to your number to inquire about the situation. Well, cousin will help you to the end. You might as well say that you've even changed your home address and sent him my address. This way, you can completely get rid of him. As for this scumbag, just leave it to me to deal with." My cousin's tone was full of disdain for the stalker and the righteousness of sincerely rescuing me. But Chloe didn't know that I could hear her inner thoughts. This idiot Emily must think that I'm really helping her. If she knew that I'm going to sleep with Blake tonight and become a wealthy family's wife, she would surely be furious. My cousin asked me to send the stalker her address. But I definitely wouldn't do that. If something happened then, wouldn't I have to take the blame? So I immediately typed a reply, "It's not a good idea to write your address. Is it? In case this pervert does something bad to you. Won't your parents skin me alive? It doesn't matter. Just let it be. If he dares to come to the door, I dare to open it. If I get pregnant with his child, I can even get 30 million yuan a month. Cousin, listen to me and ignore him." The more I told Chloe to give up and to ignore the other person, the more anxious Chloe became. Fine. 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 You want to go back on your word, right? This bitch Emily. She was just talking righteously about how she wants to focus on the postgraduate entrance examination wholeheartedly. Now that she sees that I have Blake's information, she has changed her tune and wants to steal the man from me. You want the duck that's already in my hands to fly away? In your dreams. If you don't send the message, I'll send it myself. With that in mind, my cousin immediately sent a text message to the stalker. "Oh, I told you not to send messages to my previous number. My parents sometimes check that number. Fortunately, having fulfilled my obsession, they're not at home today and didn't see it. Otherwise, we definitely couldn't meet tonight. Also, I chatted. Oh, my dear bro, I've not only changed my mobile phone number recently, but I've also changed my place of residence. I'm now living in room 308. Building 7. Wohu Community. Let's meet at 12 o'clock tonight without fail." As for my words telling her to ignore the other person, Chloe just turned a deaf ear and directly deleted the chat record between me and her. Soon, having fulfilled my obsession, the stalking murderer replied to Chloe, "Got it. Just wait for me to deal with you tonight." Foreseeing that the other side was also so eager, my cousin took a nice shower and specially picked out a sexy lace dress. With my figure, won't I drive that Blake crazy all night long? My cousin Chloe couldn't help laughing all the time. Just then, well sigh. Another text message from the stalker came. "I'm right across from your house in Wohu Community. I've been watching you through the curtains for a while. I always feel that you're different from before. All right. Come out and take out the trash so that I can have a look at you." Different? Chloe murmured in her heart. Emily and I are almost the same in height and body shape. As for our looks, needless to say, people at school used to say that we were like twins. How did this Blake tell that I'm different from Emily? Could it be that Emily doesn't want to study anymore and also wants to get rich by climbing up the social ladder like me? So she told him about my phone call? No way. I have to call and ask that bitch. As soon as her inner thoughts rang in my ears, the phone rang on the other side. "Hello, cousin. I want to ask you something. Why do you think that Blake took a fancy to you? Did you put some kind of love potion on him?" Chloe asked 2 questions in a row. In the end, she just wanted to get something out of my mouth. She wanted to find out the so-called secret of how Blake fell in love with me. But she didn't know that the most perverted thing about that stalker was that he liked disabled people. That is, what is commonly known as a paraphilia for the disabled. Chloe, I didn't want to say it originally, but since you asked, I might as well tell you. That Blake, he has a paraphilia for the disabled. I had a car accident in my senior year of high school and broke my right leg. That person kept sending messages saying that what he liked the most was my disability. I showed my cousin the screenshots of the disgusting text messages that the stalker sent to me. Your lack of a right leg really fascinates me. As long as you're willing to be with me, I'm willing to give you anything. These disgusting contents were real. Except that the person who sent the messages wasn't the wealthy second-generation Blake, but that cold-blooded and perverted stalking murderer. But when my cousin saw these screenshots, her heart was pounding wildly. I heard her inner thoughts jeering. No wonder Blake always just plays around with normal women and doesn't get married. So he likes this kind of thing. In that case, if I completely imitate and become like my cousin Emily, maybe Blake will really marry me. And then we, as a couple, can inherit the Leo family together. Isn't that better than just having a child without a proper status? Then, I'll be the legitimate wife of the Leo family. Then, what on a low sigh? Who in the Emily family won't look up to me when they see me? And those people who keep telling me to learn from my cousin every day. I'll slap them in the face then. So what if Emily got into Harvard University? So what if Emily worked hard to get into university, even though she broke her leg in her senior year of high school? Then, let out a low sigh. She'll still be working for someone like me. When she sees me, she'll have to call me Mrs. Blake. This idiot Emily surely doesn't know what kind of life she has missed in this life. Listening to Chloe's complaints and inner thoughts, I burst out laughing. Because I was reborn. I knew too well what kind of life I would miss in this life. I pushed the stalking murderer onto Chloe. What I would miss was the terrifying life of being suffocated to death by oil. And what I missed would all be borne by Chloe, who had killed me in the previous life. Thinking of this, my blood boiled even more. I couldn't wait to know what outrageous thing Chloe would do next to become like me. 5 Sure enough, I heard Chloe's calculating voice. If Blake really has a paraphilia for the disabled, then I might as well try pretending to be lame first. If I can get away with it, that would be the best. If I can't, it's not too late for me to break one of my own legs. After saying that, she replied to the stalker, since my brother wants to see his sister, I'll go out right now to take out the trash, and let you have a look at me. Brother. Originally, hadn't fulfilled my ancestor. Chloe planned to go out wearing a pair of long pants. Wearing long pants. As long as I walked and pretend to be uneven in steps, I'll look like a lame person. Blake likes to stalk people, so he must be watching from a distance and won't notice any flaws. When the lights are turned off and the curtains are drawn at night, it will be pitch black, and he won't be able to tell at all. Chloe thought this plan was very meticulous. She immediately took off her skirt and put on a pair of thick long pants. But Chloe didn't expect that I could hear her inner thoughts. After learning about her plan, I immediately took out my phone and sent a coquettish message to the stalker in Chloe's tone. Brother. Is it exciting? I'm sending you a message with this number right in front of my parents. I'll go out to take out the trash later. If you order me to wear a short skirt, I'll wear a short skirt for you today. The pervert quickly replied to me, that's so exciting. Well, today you must go out wearing a short skirt for me, and let me have a good look at your fake leg. After doing all this, I quietly waited to watch the good show. Sure enough, because of my text message, as soon as Chloe opened the door, the stalker who was hiding in the distance and enjoying the excitement immediately sent her a message. Didn't we agree that you would wear a short skirt? Why are you wearing long pants? What's the point if I can't see your fake leg? Chloe was stunned in her heart. A short skirt? When did I tell him that I would wear a short skirt? How can I pretend to be disabled if I wear a short skirt? But he said it's no fun if he can't see my fake leg. That won't do. What should I do? Seeing my cousin hesitating. At this moment, the phone just pushed the news that the Leo family had topped the world wealth list. Knowing that Chloe was determined to marry into a wealthy family, as her elder sister, I had to give her a good push. I immediately sent this news to her in a timely manner. Wow. I didn't know the Leo family was so rich and has even topped the world wealth list. I'm kind of regretting not accepting him. Cousin, do you think I should take the initiative to send him a message? At such a crucial moment, I had to put some competitive pressure on my dear cousin. Otherwise, if she backed out at the last moment, My reborn revenge plot wouldn't be satisfying at all. Sure enough, Chloe was panicked by my provoking method. She didn't even have time to reply to my message. She directly replied to the stalker, "Brother, look at my memory. I forgot your preference. I'll go change into a skirt right away." After sending the message, I could only hear that Chloe was extremely panicked inside, and kept walking back and forth in the kitchen. Do I really have to break one of my legs? Is it worth it? He's the son of the richest man after all. For someone like me, having fulfilled my desire, getting such an opportunity for close contact is a gift from heaven. Chloe, had a fulfilled my desire. It's either success or death. Believe in yourself. You can do it. My cousin Chloe kept cheering herself on. And I kept sending her messages. "Cousin, why don't you reply to my message? The postgraduate entrance examination is so difficult. I want to marry into a wealthy family and just lie back and relax. Then, when out a lull sigh, sister will take you to enjoy the glory and wealth together. Okay? What the hell? The wealthy life that belongs to me. Chloe, couldn't fulfill my session. Why should I give it to you?" My cousin's inner thoughts were full of gritted teeth. My messages continued to bombard her. What a pity. That person likes me. Otherwise, this good fortune would be yours. Sister. Then, what on a low sigh? It would be just a matter of saying if you want any famous brand bags or beautiful clothes. There would be so much money in the card that you couldn't even spend it all. Under my wave after wave of message bombardment, Chloe was so anxious that her heart was almost beating 800 times a minute. She was afraid that I would snatch the Blake who was almost in her hands at this crucial moment. So, with a bite of her teeth and a hard heart, she started the cutting machine at home. Chloe's family was in the pork business. Besides having machines in the processing factory, there were also a few machines at home for emergency use. The machine rumbled to life. Chloe was both excited and scared. It's just cutting off one leg. It won't be a problem. Exchanging one leg for becoming the wife of a wealthy family in the Leo family is really a great deal. Moreover, since Blake has a paraphilia for the disabled, when he sees that I'm a disabled person, he will only love me even more insanely. It's worth it. With these thoughts in her mind, Chloe gritted her teeth and stretched her leg onto the cutting table. Ah! With a violent scream, Chloe actually cut off her right leg according to the degree of disability of my right leg. Six daughter. What are you doing? Just as they got home, hearing the commotion, my uncle and aunt rushed to the basement and saw Chloe whose right leg was already covered in blood and flesh. Hurry. Send her to the hospital. But at this time, Chloe, had impossible sigh, who was almost fainting from the pain, actually trembled and took out her phone to take a photo of her short leg. "Brother. My leg is bleeding a lot today. Let's make another appointment some other day." The stalker replied, "My dear sister. Brother has seen it. Your broken leg is so beautiful. I love it to death." Now Chloe was greatly relieved and comforted herself in her heart. He loves it. It was worth it. My uncle and aunt, who didn't know what was going on, thought their daughter had gone crazy and quickly called 120 to send her to the hospital. But in a few days, Chloe was clamoring to be discharged from the hospital. "Chloe, having fulfilled my obsession. Are you crazy? You're so injured that you have to stay in the hospital and recuperate well." But how could Chloe wait? I kept sending her messages to complain, "Sister, I really don't want to take the postgraduate entrance examination anymore. I see that many people just end up working for others after taking the exam. Recently, Blake hasn't looked for me. And I'm thinking of taking the initiative to find him. I was so stupid before to let go of such a good man. You see, he doesn't mind that I'm disabled and even loves a woman like me to death. I was really blind to have disliked him. He stalked me for so long and didn't do anything bad to me. It can be seen that he's actually a good boy who cares about girls silently." Every time I sent such a message, Chloe's heart would be on fire with anxiety. Damn it. If she sleeps with Ryan again, I'll have broken my leg in vain. No way. I must be discharged from the hospital. My uncle and aunt didn't know the reason and naturally wouldn't let Chloe go home. "You're our only child. We're counting on you for our old age. If you don't recuperate well, What are we supposed to do? My Uncle Leo was so anxious that blisters appeared on his mouth. The pig slaughterhouse has now lost more than 2 million yuan. And your mother lost more than 500 Zara yuan gambling. We just got into a huge debt. And now you're acting crazy and cutting off a perfectly good leg. You're going to drive us crazy. My uncle was so anxious that he wiped his tears. But I didn't feel any sympathy at all. In my previous life, after I was killed, my cousin was found by the police to have written a love letter to the stalker in my name. Instead of scolding my cousin, my uncle and aunt came up with a crooked idea. Chloe, just insist that Emily told you that she liked that stalker. She just didn't want to lose face and didn't dare to write the letter herself. So she made you write it. Now that Emily is dead, no one knows if what you said is true or false. So Chloe cried in front of my parents. My cousin told me that she liked that kind of person. I tried to persuade her to stay away from the stalker. But my cousin said that the stalker was following her because he was afraid that someone would bully her. He was protecting her silently. She also said that she was too embarrassed and asked me to write the love letter. I really couldn't refuse her. So I wrote a few letters. I didn't expect that man to be so perverted that he would rape and kill someone. My cousin cried so much that she hit her head against the wall. My parents were already heartbroken. And since my cousin looked 90 similar to me, they couldn't bear it and stopped my cousin. Later, under the guidance of my uncle and aunt, Chloe greeted my parents with concern every day. My parents were so grief-stricken that they couldn't sleep at night. But when Chloe appeared in our house with an almost identical face, my parents always felt as if I was still there. Gradually, having in session, they regarded Chloe as me. My uncle and aunt also took the opportunity to let Chloe recognize my parents as her parents. You wrote the letter to the stalker in Emily's name. Although it was your cousin who asked you to write it, you still did something wrong. Now that Emily is gone, from now on, you'll take care of her uncle and aunt. From now on, you'll be half a daughter of the Emily family. Do you understand? Just like that, Chloe entered my family. Sometimes my parents felt sad when they saw her. But most of the time, they still regarded her as me. So when she said she wanted to buy a car, my parents bought it for her. When she said she wanted to buy a house, my parents gave it to her. But they had no idea that Chloe immediately sold the car and the house to pay off the debts of her own family. By sucking the blood of my parents, the Leo family not only paid off all the debts but also bought new shops and houses. They lived a prosperous life, while my family was gradually emptied. In the end, my parents died of depression, and my uncle and aunt occupied all the property of my family. In this life, none of their family members will have an easy time. 7. Seeing that her uncle and aunt really wouldn't let her go home, Chloe told the truth. Mom, cousin fulfilled my obsession. Dad, doesn't our family need money? My broken leg can earn a lot of money for our family. At first, my Uncle Leo didn't believe it until later when Chloe said that she had hooked up with Blake from the Leo family. Do you mean the Leo family that just topped the world wealth list? Leo didn't believe it. Are you being deceived? With our family's conditions, how could we have any connection with Blake? Chloe sneered. Dad, generally, people like us really can't have any connection with the Leo family. But God has eyes. This person is a stalker and has a paraphilia for the disabled. He took a fancy to my cousin Emily. Emily, heading fulfilled wide sigh. That big fool who only knows how to study, told me about this. I immediately saw the business opportunity in it. Under the pretext of helping her scold away the stalker, I got Blake's contact information. Mom and Dad, haven't you always thought that Uncle and Aunt's family is rich and looks down on our family? Now our family is in debt. If we don't stand up, those relatives will look down on our family even more. Now that I've broken my leg, we have to quickly get Blake before Emily changes her mind. Not to mention marrying into the Leo family and inheriting the family business. If I get pregnant with a child of the Leo family, I can get 30 million yuan a month. 30 million yuan. Uncle's small eyes widened. He glanced at Aunt. And Aunt Ivy sighed. Chloe, you're my only precious daughter. I don't want you to be wronged. Chloe immediately held Aunt Ivy's hand. Mom, I'm not wronged. I've taken a fancy to that young master of the Leo family for a long time. I used to often fantasize about marrying him and having children with him. Now my dream is coming true. Really? It wiped her tears. Really? I swear. Chloe raised her hand. Seeing that her daughter was so sincere, Aunt's brows and eyes relaxed. Since it's the person you love, Mom won't say anything. Being able to sleep with the person you like and earn a sum of money for the family is a two birds with one stone thing. Uncle Leo also excitedly held Chloe's hand. Since it's not something that wrongs you, of course we support you. Mom and Dad will go through the discharge procedures for you now, so that young Master Blake can come to our house and fulfill your wish. In order to test whether I had contacted Blake, my cousin took the initiative to send me a message. Cousin, I advise you not to have any contact with that kind of pervert. So what if he's rich? He's a stalker and has a paraphilia for the disabled. Maybe after you catch him, he'll cut off your hands and feet to satisfy his perverted desires. I burst out laughing. It turned out that my cousin also knew that such a person was terrifying. However, there is one thing she said that was quite right. This stalker with a paraphilia for the disabled, after each time he violated someone, would slowly torture the other person. The 7 girls before me were all slowly tortured and finally dismembered one by one. He would cut off the victim's arms one knife at a time, and then cut off the legs one by one. Let the victim die in despair. And I was the only one who, because I usually practiced boxing, after struggling with him, was pressed into an oil drum and suffocated to death. My cousin, who is usually held in the palm of Uncle and Aunt's hands, is powerless. I'm afraid she won't be able to escape the fate of being dismembered by the perverted man. In the face of the text message sent by my cousin, I replied, "Thank you, cousin, me fulfilled for the reminder. I will think it through before taking any action." This kind of answer that doesn't deny it made my cousin even more determined to invite the stalker home immediately. I can't let Blake find out the flaw. The longer it takes, the more likely that person is to return to Malming community. And in this way, he is very likely to find out that I'm not Emily. In fact, Chloe was overthinking it. The stalker would definitely not be able to wait for me in Malming community. On the day when I could read Chloe's inner thoughts, I had already told my parents that I was reborn, and I told them about the stalker following me. At first, my parents thought about slowly packing up the things before leaving, because they, like me in the previous life, thought it was just an ordinary stalker and planned to take precautions by themselves first. If they were really threatened, they would call the police. But they didn't expect that this stalker was actually a psychopathic murderer and had a paraphilia for the disabled. After I made clear the identity of this person, my parents didn't take anything. They just took their bank cards and fled the city with me. In this life, nothing is more important than running for our lives. Because of my ability to read minds, even if I'm not in the local area, I can know all of Chloe's activities. Sure enough, after receiving my reply, Chloe immediately sent a message to the stalker, "Brother, I'm discharged from the hospital. I'll go home tonight. Shall we meet at 12 o'clock? The stalker had been waiting impatiently. I've been wandering around the hospital for several days. I've missed you so much. Brother, I promise to make you very satisfied tonight." Chloe replied, "I believe you, brother." I smiled because I also believed that Chloe would die in a way that would satisfy me. 9 soon. It was almost 12 o'clock. Uncle Leo and Aunt Ivy knew that the stalker was watching all this, so they pretended to go to Chloe's room and say goodnight to her. They didn't draw the curtains, hoping that the stalker could see that they were going to bed. But Aunt Ivy still reminded, "Chloe, if you don't want it anymore, you must call us. Mom and Dad are ready to help you at any time. You know?" Uncle Leo also reminded, "We're just in the next room. The police number is already pre-dialed. You have to understand that even if you're willing now, but if that stinky man makes you unhappy, you can refuse at any time. Don't make things difficult for yourself." Chloe pushed them, "Mom and Dad, you guys go quickly. I'm crazy about wanting to marry Blake. How could I not want it? You're making your daughter feel shy." Only then did Aunt Ivy stand up. Okay. Our daughter has grown up and has her own ideas. We respect you. After all, you're also solving a big problem for the family. With that, the couple went out. Dang dang dang, the bell rang at 12 o'clock. And the stalker arrived as promised. Hearing the sound of the door being pushed open in the living room, Chloe knew that the Blake she had been waiting for had come. And I, who was sleeping in another distant city, knew that the long-awaited revenge drama was finally here. 10 baby, you beat. I'm here. The door of Chloe's bedroom was opened. I can't make a sound, or Blake might tell that I'm not Emily. So Chloe pinched her throat and let out a hum. What's wrong with your throat? The stalker wasn't stupid and immediately heard something was wrong. Chloe nervously pinched her throat. It's the first time I'm meeting you, brother. I'm a little nervous. What are you nervous about? Didn't you say you liked me to death? With that, the stalker touched Chloe's empty right leg. You know what? Every time I look at your empty right leg, I really want to. What do you really want to do? Chloe asked shyly. Unexpectedly, the stalker's answer made her heart tremble. I really want to know how beautiful it would be if I cut off your left leg. My cousin nervously grabbed the bed sheet. Brother, how could you think like that? Don't be afraid. I'm just kidding. The pervert mocked. But after the pervert said that, and because I had reminded her that the other person had a paraphilia for the disabled, Chloe still felt a chill down her spine. She suddenly felt a little regretful and thought in a panic, what was I thinking? I actually slept with a pervert for money and even broke my own leg. I've been held in the palm of my parents' hands since I was a child and have never suffered any hardship. Why did I suddenly want to compete with my cousin for that wealthy second generation? What if he really cuts off my leg? But seeing that the stalker was about to press on her, Chloe persuaded herself again, no. Even if he really breaks my leg, Brother Blake won't abandon me. He has a paraphilia for the disabled and will only love me more. It's still worth it even if I'm paralyzed. Chloe's mind was in a mess. But at this moment, the man standing by her bed had already pressed down on her. He smelled terrible. As if he had soaked in manure for 3 days and 3 nights. It was extremely stinky and fishy. Chloe didn't know that it was the smell of blood on the psychopathic murderer. He ate live chickens and snakes raw. And even smeared the blood of the people he killed all over his body. He called it obtaining the power of God. Chloe felt nauseous and instinctively pushed him away. I don't want it anymore. Go away. However, it was already too late. You called me here. And now you want me to leave. I'm not leaving. The perverted man sneered. And the stench from his mouth almost made Chloe faint. I'm going to call the police. Chloe wanted to shout. But soon her mouth was tightly sealed with thick adhesive tape. From now on, you have no say in anything. And Ivy next door perked up her ears and heard the commotion. She vaguely felt that something was wrong. Did I hear a cry for help? Uncle Leo perked up his ears and listened for a while. Then laughed. Our daughter has never suffered any hardship in her life. It's normal for her to make some noise because of the pain for the first time. He pressed his ear against the wall and listened for a while. Look. There's no sound now. Right? But they had no idea that their precious daughter's mouth had been sealed with tape. And a murderer who had 7 lives on his back was now defiling their beloved Chloe. Woohoo! Woohoo! Those were not the sounds made by loving couples. But Chloe's cries for help that couldn't be heard. After a few minutes like this, they heard a louder commotion. It was as if something was being chopped. And Ivy couldn't hold back anymore. Something's not right. I must go and take a look. I'm afraid our silly daughter is being deceived by someone. She got out of bed. And Uncle Leo quickly grabbed his phone and followed. Ready to call the police at any moment. And Ivy knocked on the door. Chloe, are you okay? There was no response. If you don't answer, your father and I will have to find the key to open the door. Just as they were about to use the key to open the door, a faint voice came from inside. I'm fine. Mom. Seeing the reply, Ivy felt relieved. Then we'll go back to our room and go to sleep. There was another commotion from inside. Ivy, feeling a bit embarrassed, pulled Uncle Leo back into the room. Our daughter is right next door. It's kind of embarrassing. Uncle Leo said, alas. Our daughter has grown up. Besides, she herself said that she likes that guy. I also searched online and found some of Chloe's accounts. There really are expressions of her admiration for that Blake. You could say that they're a couple who finally got together. And she can also help our family in such a big way. These days aren't like the old times. People aren't as conservative as before. It's not necessary to wait until the wedding day. Right? The couple felt a bit gratified. After failing to have a second child for so many years, they had accepted their fate. They raised this daughter as if she were a son and doted on her, making sure she never suffered. If there was any suffering to speak of, it might be in the past 2 years. After getting rich, and Ivy became arrogant and got hooked on gambling, losing a lot of money. Their luck was bad, and the family business also suffered significant losses. Ivy comforted herself. Once Chloe marries into a wealthy family in the future, I believe our family's life will get better and better. At least we'll definitely lie better than the Emily's family. Uncle Leo nodded. Since childhood, his younger sister had been better at studying than him. He only graduated from high school, while his sister got into university. The whole family praised his sister for being promising. Fortunately, later on, he made some money from doing business, and his status in the family improved a lot. Unexpectedly, his brother-in-law was even more capable. His monthly income was equivalent to his own annual income. The relatives who had just started to flatter him not long ago turned around and started to fawn over his sister's family again. Remembering that as the only son of the Leo family, he was less valued than a girl, Leo felt pained. Fortunately, having fulfilled Leo's set, his daughter was quite capable, and could have dealings with the young master of the Leo family. His own status and position would surely soar in the future. Such a large Leo family couldn't possibly not give him support, right? At the thought of this, he listened to the muffled sounds coming from next door, and it actually seemed to him like the sound of Blake's father cheerfully calling him father-in-law. But little did he know that at this moment, Chloe had already had her left leg cut off. She cried so hard that blood flowed from her eyes. "Look how beautiful you are without your legs." The pervert admired his work. Emily, hadn't Blake's sigh. "I really didn't expect you to confess your love to me on your own initiative. Actually, if you hadn't taken the initiative to tell me that you liked me, I didn't plan to sleep with you. It was you who aroused my desire. So you can't blame me." As soon as Chloe heard the pervert mention her name, she thought that her chance of being saved had come, taking advantage of the moment when the adhesive tape loosened. She weakly pleaded, "Big brother. I don't know who you are, but I'm sure you've mistaken me for someone else. I'm not Emily. Emily lives in Mauming community. If you like her, go find her. Please spare me." When the pervert heard that the other person said she wasn't Emily, he stood up with a whoosh and pulled open the curtain. The moonlight shone on Chloe's face, and that face was exactly the same as Emily's. "Hey, you little bitch. Having second thoughts?" The pervert had a wicked smile on his face. After pulling open the curtain, Chloe finally saw the face of the person in front of her clearly. That person wasn't Blake at all. It was a face with distorted features burned together, and his uneven yellow teeth almost scared her into fainting. But fortunately, she realized that she could still call for help from her parents and immediately shouted with all her might, "Mom, Mom, Dad, help." But before the word help could come out, the psychopathic killer had already covered her mouth, and then he violated her again. On the other side of the room, and Ivy had already fallen asleep. In her dream, she saw Blake, let out a low sigh. The heir of the Leo family, raise her daughter's left hand. The huge ring was so dazzling that it almost blinded her eyes. She didn't know that at the moment she was having this dream, Chloe was watching as her left hand was chopped off. Uncle Leo dreamed that his daughter Chloe stretched out her right hand, holding a bank card with a deposit of 30 million yuan. "Dad, this is for you as a token of my filial piety." In the dream, Chloe smiled and said to him. Leo didn't know that at the moment he was having this dream, Chloe's entire right hand had just been severed. By the time Chloe had no limbs left and was just a rough shape like a human pig, Uncle and Aunt were awake and by the sound of police cars outside the window. With a loud crashing sound, the door of the living room was forcefully broken open. "What are you doing?" And Ivy rushed out without even having time to put on her clothes. "We received a report that the serial stalking, raping and murdering criminal is in your house." The leading police officer was fully armed and was about to break down the door of the secondary bedroom. "You're talking nonsense. In my daughter's room is the young master of the Leo family. Blake." Uncle Leo also rushed out quickly. The couple stood opposite the police. And behind them was their daughter Chloe's bedroom. "Blake of the Leo family?" The police officer sneered. "Aren't you going to check your phones? Blake is shopping and traveling with his new girlfriend in Japan today. How could he be in your bedroom?" As he spoke, he took out a wanted poster. A terrifying man with burned and distorted features appeared in front of the Leo couple. "In your daughter's bedroom is the psychopathic killer who has killed 7 girls in a row. Get out of the way quickly." And Ivy still didn't want to move aside, but she tentatively called her daughter's name a few times towards the door. When she received no response, her body went limp. Taking advantage of this moment, the police officer kicked the door open, just in time to see the psychopathic killer preparing to jump out of the window. But he never expected that the police had already made preparations and had locked the window from the outside. There was no way out. So the psychopathic killer held hostage the limbless Chloe. "Let me out, or I'll kill her." And Ivy looked at her daughter, who had been so beautiful and fragrant with perfume before going to bed. Now she was covered in blood, and all her limbs were chopped off so that there was nothing left. She could hardly believe her eyes. She only let out a cry of, "Chloe," and then fainted. Leo was also stunned. Who are you? Where's Blake? Where is Blake of the Leo family?" "Blake of the Leo family? Open your eyes. You son of a bitch. I'm the serial stalking and murdering criminal Blake." "Impossible. Absolutely impossible." Chloe said that the person she let in was the young master of the Leo family. How could this be? When the police had already captured the psychopath, Leo was still muttering that it was impossible. "Chloe, say something." Chloe let out a sigh. In the end, it was hard to tell whether her eyes were bleeding or shedding tears. After a long while, she spat out a sentence, "Dad, I was deceived by Emily." 11 Uncle Leo was furious and called me, "Emily. It's all your fault that my daughter ended up like this." I pretended not to know. "Uncle. What are you talking nonsense about in the middle of the night? Stop pretending. You told Chloe that the son of the Leo family was stalking you. You were lying to her. Now Chloe has been terribly violated, and both her hands and feet have been cut off. Are you satisfied?" I pretended to be very surprised. "You said my cousin had her hands and feet cut off. How could this happen?" "Don't worry. I'll immediately ask the police to investigate you." Uncle Leo left such a sentence in the end when he couldn't get any answers from me. But what was the use? In the end, all the police could find out was that I had indeed told Chloe about someone stalking me. And the messages where I told her to stop having contact with Blake. As for me complaining to my cousin that I didn't want to take the postgraduate entrance examination, and that I wanted to be with Blake, these could only prove that I was a student who was a bit materialistic at times, and couldn't prove that I framed Chloe. Because it was Chloe herself who secretly wrote down the stalker's number and secretly sent messages to the stalker using my identity. It could only be said that everything Chloe had gone through was her own fault. After being rescued, Chloe finally survived. And Ivy wasn't so lucky. She went crazy directly. She always held a doll and cried, saying, "My baby is healthy. She has hands and feet and is a happy and good child." Uncle Leo's business debts kept increasing, and he was chased by a group of people for debt collection every day. As a husband, he also had to pay off Aunt Ivy's gambling debts. He drank to drown his sorrows and drank every day. Later, he was sometimes sober and sometimes insane. Finally, having fulfilled Werbsai, one day, after drinking, he put the dirty Chloe into a large jar and then placed it in the shabby living room before leaving. In the end, Chloe was stuffed alone in the jar and starved for 7 days and 7 nights. She was literally starved and thirsted to death, and Ivy couldn't hold back anymore. "Something's not right. I have to go and take a look. I'm afraid our silly daughter has been deceived." She got out of bed, and Uncle Leo quickly followed with his phone, ready to call the police at any moment. And Ivy knocked on the door. "Chloe, are you okay?" There was no response. "If you don't answer, your father and I will have to find the key to open the door." Just as they were about to use the key to open the door, A faint voice came from inside, "I'm fine, Mom." Hearing the reply, Ivy felt relieved. "Then we'll go back to our room and sleep." There was another commotion inside. And Ivy, feeling a bit embarrassed, pulled Uncle Leo back to their room. "Our daughter is right next door. It's kind of embarrassing," Uncle Leo said. "Alas. Our daughter has grown up. Besides, she said herself that she likes that guy. I also searched the internet and found some of Chloe's accounts. There were really all expressions of admiration for that Blake. It can be considered that lovers finally get married. And she can also help our family so much. What era is it now? It's not as conservative as before. There's no need to wait until the wedding day. Right?" The couple felt a bit relieved. After failing to have a second child for so many years, they had accepted their fate. They raised this daughter as if she were a son. And they had doted on her and never let her suffer. If we really had to talk about suffering, it might be in the past 2 years. After getting some money, and Ivy became arrogant and got addicted to gambling, losing a lot of money. Their luck was not good, and the family business also suffered a lot of losses. Ivy comforted herself. "Once Chloe marries into a wealthy family in the future, I believe our family's life will get better and better. At least it will definitely be better than Emily's family." Uncle Leo nodded. Since childhood, his younger sister had been better at studying than him. He graduated from high school, while his sister was admitted to university. The whole family praised his sister for being promising. Fortunately, heading fulfilledly. Later he made some money from doing business. And his status in the family improved a lot. Unexpectedly. His brother-in-law was even more powerful later. His monthly income was equal to his annual income. The relatives who had finally started to flatter him before turned around and started to fawn on his sister's family. Remembering that as the only son of the Leo family, he was less valued than a girl. Leo felt sad whenever he thought about it. Fortunately, heading fulfilledly, his daughter was quite capable and could have contact with the young master of the Leo family. In the future, his own status and position would surely rise sharply. Such a large Leo family couldn't possibly not give him support, right? At the thought of this, when he heard the whimpering sound next door, it sounded like the sound of Blake's father cheerfully calling him his in-law. But how could he know that at this moment, Chloe's left leg had already been cut off? She cried so much that blood flowed out of her eyes. "Look how beautiful you are without your legs." The pervert admired his work. "Emily, hadn't fulfilled my obsession. I really didn't expect you to take the initiative to confess your love to me. Actually, if you hadn't taken the initiative to tell me that you liked me, I didn't plan to sleep with you. It was you who aroused my desire. So you can't blame me." As soon as Chloe heard the pervert mention my name, she thought her chance of being saved had come. Taking advantage of the moment when the adhesive tape loosened, she pleaded weakly, "Brother, I don't know who you are, but I'm sure you've mistaken me for someone else. I'm not Emily. Emily lives in Mauming community. If you like her, go find her. Please spare me." When the pervert heard that the other person said she wasn't Emily, he stood up with a whoosh and opened the curtain. The moonlight shone on Chloe's face. And that face was exactly the same as mine. Yo then they. "You little bitch. Do you regret it?" The pervert had a wicked smile on his face. As soon as the curtain was opened, Chloe finally saw the face of the person in front of her clearly. That person was definitely not Blake. A face with its features burned and twisted together, and a mouth full of uneven yellow teeth almost scared her into fainting. But fortunately, she realized that she could still call for help from her parents, and immediately shouted with all her strength, "Mom, ma'am, Dad, help!" But before the word help could be shouted out, the psychopathic murderer had already sealed her mouth. And then he violated her again. On the other side of the room, and Ivy had already fallen asleep. In her dream, she saw Blake, the heir of the Leo family, raise her daughter's left hand. The huge ring was so dazzling that it almost blinded her eyes. She didn't know that at the moment she was having this dream, Chloe watched helplessly as her left hand was chopped off. Uncle Leo dreamed that his daughter Chloe stretched out her right hand, holding a bank card with a deposit of 30 million yuan in it. "Dad, this is for you as my filial piety." In the dream, Chloe smiled and said to him. Leo didn't know that at the moment he was having this dream. Chloe's entire right hand had just been cut off. When Chloe had no limbs left and was just a form resembling a human pig, Uncle and Aunt were awake and by the sound of police cars outside the window. With a violent crashing sound. The door of the living room was heavily smashed open. "What are you doing?" And Ivy rushed out without even having time to put on her clothes. "We received a report that the serial stalking, raping and murdering criminal is in your house." The leading police officer was fully armed and was about to break down the door of the secondary bedroom. "What nonsense are you talking? In my daughter's room is the young Master Blake of the Leo family." Uncle Leo also rushed out quickly. The couple stood opposite the police. And behind them was their daughter Chloe's bedroom. "Blake of the Leo family?" The police officer sneered. "Don't you check your phones? Blake is shopping and traveling with his new girlfriend in Japan today. How could he be in your bedroom?" With that, he took out a wanted poster. A terrifying man with his features burned and squeezed together appeared in front of the Leo couple. "In your daughter's bedroom is the psychopathic murderer, who has killed 7 girls in a row. Get out of the way quickly." And Ivy still didn't want to move aside. But she tentatively called her daughter's name a few times towards the door. When she found no response, she went limp all over. Taking advantage of this moment, the police officer kicked the door open. Just in time to see the psychopathic murderer preparing to jump out of the window. But how could he have expected that the police had already made preparations and had locked the window from the outside? There was no way out. So the psychopathic murderer held Chloe, who had no hands or feet left, hostage. "Let me out, or I'll kill her." And Ivy looked at her daughter, who had been so beautiful and sprayed with perfume before going to bed. Now she was covered in blood, and all her limbs were cut off, leaving her completely bare. And Ivy could hardly believe her eyes. She only called out, "Chloe," and then fainted. Leo was also stunned. You was also stunned. "You? Who are you? Where is Blake? Where is Blake of the Leo family?" "Blake of the Leo family? Open your eyes. You son of a bitch. I'm the serial stalking and murdering criminal Blake." "Impossible. Absolutely impossible." Chloe said that the one she let in was the young master of the Leo family. How could this be? When the police had already captured the pervert. Leo was still muttering that it was impossible. "Chloe. Say something." Chloe let out a sigh, having fulfilled my sigh. And in the end, it was hard to tell whether her eyes were bleeding or crying. After a long while, she spat out a sentence, "Dad. I was deceived by Emily." 11 Uncle Leo was furious and called me, "Emily. It's all your fault that my daughter has become like this." I pretended not to know. "Uncle. What are you talking nonsense in the middle of the night? Don't pretend to me. You told Chloe that the son of the Leo family was following you. And you were lying to her. Now Chloe has been terribly abused. And both her hands and feet have been cut off. Are you satisfied?" I pretended to be surprised. "You said my cousin had her hands and feet cut off? How could this happen?" "Don't worry. I'll immediately ask the police to investigate you." Uncle Leo left such a sentence in the end when he couldn't get anything out of me. But what was the use? In the end, all the police could find out was that I had indeed told Chloe that someone was following me. And the messages where I told her not to have any more contact with Blake. As for me complaining to my cousin that I didn't want to take the postgraduate entrance examination and wanted to be with Blake, these could only prove that I was a student who was also a bit materialistic occasionally. And couldn't prove that I had framed Chloe. Because it was Chloe herself who secretly wrote down the stalker's number and secretly sent messages to the stalker using my identity. It could only be said that everything Chloe had experienced was her own doing. After being rescued, Chloe finally survived. And Ivy wasn't so lucky. She went crazy directly. She always held a doll and cried, saying, "My baby is healthy. She has hands and feet and is a happy and good child." Uncle Leo's business debts were increasing day by day. And he was chased by a group of people for debt collection every day. As a husband, he also had to pay off Aunt Ivy's gambling debts. He drank to drown his sorrows and drank every day. Later, he was sometimes sober and sometimes insane. Finally, having fulfilled Wyatt Sai, one day, after drinking, He put the dirty Chloe into a large jar and then placed it in the dilapidated living room before leaving. In the end, Chloe was left alone in the jar and starved for 7 days and 7 nights. She was finally starved and dehydrated to death. Before Chloe died, I heard her final inner thoughts. Emily, it was you who was killed in the previous life. Why is it me in this life? Are you reborn? Otherwise, why would you lie and say that the one following you was Blake? But she would never know the answer. Because when she was starved to death, I was celebrating with my parents the news that the stalking murderer had been executed. In the previous life, I was the 8th girl he violated and killed. And in this life, the 8th girl was Chloe. Because of my call to the police, Chloe would also be the last girl he killed. Blake? This name sounds familiar. But she just hung up the phone with a cold laugh. In the end, the police didn't catch the murderer in time. As a result, this pervert committed crimes 3 more times in a row, and there were a total of 11 victims. Before Chloe died, I heard her final inner thoughts. Emily, it was you who was killed in the previous life. Why is it me in this life? Are you reborn? Otherwise, why would you lie and say that the once talking you was Blake? But she would never know the answer. Because when she was starved to death, I was celebrating with my parents the news that the stalking murderer had been executed. In the previous life, I was the 8th girl he violated and killed. And in this life, the 8th girl was Chloe. Because of my call to the police, Chloe would also be the last girl he killed. Blake? This name sounds so familiar. But she just hung up the phone with a cold laugh. In the end, the police didn't catch the murderer in time. As a result, this pervert committed crimes 3 more times in a row, and there were a total of 11 victims. In this life, the other 3 girls all managed to survive. After Chloe died, the police found Uncle Leo. However, they found him in the mortuary. Because after the drunk Uncle Leo put his cousin Chloe into a large vat, he started going on a drunken rampage in the street. Finally, he was hit and killed by a truck. Looking at these shocking news stories one after another, my mother sat on the sofa in a daze for a long time. Are you feeling sad for Uncle? I asked. My mother retracted her gaze from outside the window and grabbed my hand. People are not plants or trees. The death of an ant can arouse people's compassion, let alone a close relative of one's own. She paused and then hugged me. All lives have their causes and effects. This is the cause and effect of their family. Although I sigh at the ups and downs of life, I am even more grateful that our family can still be together safely. Honey, in this life, let's live well. I nodded solemnly. In the previous life, I didn't have the chance to take the postgraduate entrance examination or pursue a doctorate degree. In this life, I will fulfill all these dreams. The full text ends. My husband is a stupid rich second generation who is generous with other people's things. In my previous life, in order to save his father's company, which was on the verge of bankruptcy, he deliberately got me drunk and gave me as a plaything to a perverted and violent business partner who liked to use underhanded means. The company received the investment and the crisis was averted. Then he had someone drown me and dump my body into the sea. He said, "Our family can't have a promiscuous mistress. Only if you die can we preserve the reputation of the Thompson family." After being reborn, I smashed his wine glass and stuffed all the remaining powerful drugs into his mouth. In his terrified gaze, I grabbed his neck. If you want to save your family, of course, you have to use your ass. 1. Ivy. How many times have you been with Leo? Stop pretending to be a chaste and heroic woman here. Whether you want to or not, drink this glass of wine first. Hearing Ryan's familiar curse, I suddenly woke up from the pain of drowning. I actually went back to the day when Ryan gave me to the perverted business partner after the company went bankrupt in my previous life. After Uncle Shen died, Ryan Thompson was good for nothing. After I married him, I have been in charge of the company. He gets drunk and indulges in his own world every day. Being a carefree and stupid rich second generation, I worked from dawn till dusk to take care of everything. But in the end, I was called a scheming woman. And people said that I married him just for his family's fortune. Ignoring my wishes, he and his mother plotted to give me to Leo, a big shot in the Beijing circle. when the company was in crisis. But then he mocked me at the drinking party. Isn't she just afraid that once the Thompson family falls, she won't be able to get money? I said I don't want the company anymore. But she still argued with me furiously, saying that losing the company would be sorry to my father. It's so ridiculous. That's my father, not hers. She really regards herself as a member of the Thompson family. Later, he abused his power and made wrong investments behind my back. The company was on the verge of bankruptcy. I tried to find connections everywhere and figure out solutions. He called me back on the phone, saying he wanted to talk to me. But then he drugged me and sent me to someone else's bed. I was weak all over and cried, begging him to take me away. He stepped on my fingers viciously. Don't think I don't know that you're my father's illegitimate daughter. If you sleep with him, the company can be saved. Isn't it a good deal? He left me behind. When I escaped again, I was on the verge of death. I grew up with him. We were childhood sweethearts. And we once had a beautiful love. But when I saw him again, he was hugging his first love. And his eyes were full of tenderness that I had never received. Baby, Ivy is just a slut who has been with many men. How can she compare to you? My heart was completely broken. I reported the evidence that they drugged me and sent me to the cocktail party to be toyed with to the police. But he noticed it in advance and kidnapped me and drowned me in the uninhabited area of the deep sea. To make sure there were no mistakes, Ryan even tied an iron block weighing 100 kilograms to my feet. Our family can't have a promiscuous young mistress. Only if you die can we preserve the reputation of the Thompson family. To the reputation of the Thompson family? When they needed me, I was the daughter-in-law of the Thompson family and the general manager of the Thompson family's company. A tool to maintain their wealthy life. When they didn't need me, I was a disgrace. Ivy, are you deaf? I told you to drink. Hurry up. I still have things to do. Do you really want to see the Thompson family's company go bankrupt? Don't you forget what the old man told you before he died. Seeing my silence, Ryan knocked on the table impatiently. Hearing about Ryan's father, I finally reacted. I obediently took the wine glass in Ryan's mocking gaze. He always knew my weak point. My father was originally a driver of the Thompson family. Later, he accidentally died while saving Ryan's father. As an orphan girl, I was taken back to the Thompson family by Ryan's father's decision and raised there. Ryan was spoiled by his mother since childhood and was extremely unruly. I was smart and hardworking. After graduating from university, I worked my way up to the manager of a branch department in the Thompson family's enterprise. Then Ryan's father had the idea of letting me take over the company. I was terrified of such a decision. But the Thompson family had been kind to me. When Ryan's father's health suddenly deteriorated, I had to take on the task in times of crisis. At the bedside, Ryan's father took my hand and Ryan's hand and put them together. His sharp eyes saw through my thoughts at once. Child, I can see that you like Ryan. Ryan is impulsive and doesn't know how to manage the company. In the future, we can only rely on you. His kind eyes struck me. And I seemed to go back to the afternoon when I held my father's funeral. The uncle opened the door and took my hand, rescuing me from a group of relatives who were fighting for the family property. Ivy, come home with uncle. From now on, the Thompson family will also be your home. Okay? The Thompson family was rich and powerful. For a dead driver, a compensation of millions was already enough, and they didn't need to care about an orphan girl like me originally. How could I not understand Ryan's father's actions? Finally, having fulfilled I agreed. But after Ryan's father died, Ryan and his mother maliciously misinterpreted this entrustment. Since then, I have been the one to manage and bear all the responsibilities of the Thompson family from top to bottom. And this sentence has also become my shackle. But now, I was so stupid that I died once. How could Ryan deserve it? Slap. The cold wine splashed on Ryan's stunned face. Before he could react, I grabbed his chin and stuffed the drugged wine bottle beside me into his mouth. Let the company go bankrupt. What does it have to do with me? Drink. Don't you like drinking? Drink yourself to death. I did farm work when I was a child. And when I grew up, I was bullied by Ryan and others to work as a nanny. I had great strength. When Ryan finally broke free, half a bottle of wine had already been poured into him. His whole body was red from the heat. And he kept digging at his throat. There were red marks on his neck that I pinched. His fierce sighs seemed to have a hint of amorous feelings, as if he wanted to say something but held back. Ivy, are you courting death? I told you to drink. Before he could finish. He was so angry that he coughed. He kept twisting, pulling his tie, and his breathing became heavy. Then his eyes glanced down and he stopped moving. I knew that the drug was taking effect. I held the other half of the bottle, grabbed his hair from above, and asked him, "Does the wine taste good? Drink some more." This time he resisted violently. But still a lot of wine was forced into him. He was in a sorry state and finally roared in frustration. "Enough. There's drugs in this wine. I'm sorry for you. Hurry. Hurry up and take me away. If you don't want to serve Victor, it's okay. Take the phone out of my suit pocket. I'll talk to him." He lay on the ground leisurely, thinking that as long as he said it, I would obediently do it. But he waited for a long time. And I didn't react, until he couldn't bear it anymore and looked up at me. I sneered and replied, "Husband, I can leave, but you can't leave. If you leave, what will happen to our company?" The color rained from Ryan's face in an instant. He stumbled and tried to crawl over to get the phone, but I easily stepped past him. "Husband, save your energy. General Manager Victor is almost here. You have to try your best to keep our company afloat." After saying that, I tied him up with a rope just like what Ryan did to me in my previous life. When I lifted the bed curtain, I saw that Ryan had already prepared a lot of unknown items underneath to cater to Victor's interests. Remembering the painful memories of my previous life, I felt cold all over and turned around, ready to leave. Seeing me leave resolutely, Ryan collapsed and cried and begged. "Ivy, I was wrong. I'm really wrong. Take me away. I won't do this again in the future. Don't you like me? Let's make up and be a real couple. Okay?" How ridiculous. In my previous life, I also begged him like this. But he stepped on my fingers and slandered me as Ryan's father's illegitimate daughter. Then he went to be affectionate with his first love. Thinking of this, I also turned my head calmly facing his expectant gaze. I stepped on his fingers and returned all his previous malice. "If you sleep with him, the company can be saved. Isn't it a good deal?" I didn't leave the hotel immediately. Instead, I opened a room next door and hid behind the door to observe. Soon, when a low sigh, a portly middle-aged man led people into the room just now. He didn't come out for half an hour. In my previous life, I was wantonly tortured by that man for a whole day and night. And he also threatened me with photos and videos. But because of this, I knew that this man had the interest in using underhanded means. The fair-skinned and good-looking Ryan was just to his taste. I was glad that I was reborn in time and avoided the tragedy of my previous life. Just as I was about to leave, I met my mother-in-law with a sneaky look in the hotel stairwell. When she saw me, she was immediately shocked and spoke in a flustered manner. You should be in the old man's bed, right?" My heart turned cold. It seemed that my mother-in-law, who always treated people gently, also acquiesced in giving me as a plaything to Victor to be toyed with. For Ivy, where's Ryan? Have you seen him? No. He's the one who asked me to come here. Where is he? This isn't right? Well, if there's nothing else, I have something else to do and I'll leave first. My mother-in-law awkwardly moved aside to let me pass the elevator. But suddenly she saw several bodyguards of Victor's coming out of the opposite room, chatting and laughing with lecherous looks on their faces. Well, the young master of the Tomps and family really screams so slutty. I wonder if General Manager Victor will leave him for us after he's done playing. I'm also. My heart skipped a beat. My mother-in-law quickly blocked the elevator door and asked me sinisterly, "Where exactly is Ryan?" My heart sank. My mother-in-law called those bodyguards and finally managed to explain things. The door finally opened. I was grabbed and forced in by the bodyguards. There was a decadent smell in the room. On the bed covered by the gauze curtain, Ryan was lying there half dead. Victor was sitting on the sofa with his shirt wide open. And he was very angry about being interrupted. As soon as my mother-in-law swore in, she rushed to the bedside like crazy. But was pushed back by the bodyguards. She wailed and cried. "Boss Victor. There's a mistake. It was originally this bitch who was supposed to serve you. How did it become my son? Change it back quickly. No. It must be you who did this. Ivy. I've always known you're not a good person. The Thompson family has raised you for so many years. But you turned out to be such an ungrateful person." After saying that, she struggled free and was about to slap me in the face out of hatred. I was held down by the bodyguards. So my hands couldn't move. But my feet were very agile. I kicked her with my high-heeled shoe. And she groaned and fell to the side. At this moment, Boss Victor spoke. He was addicted to Ryan and looked at me up and down with lecherous eyes. He said with satisfaction, "Change? What to change? I think you should lead this girl here too. I want both of them. I'll give you double the funds you want. How about it?" I was so disgusted that goosebumps covered my body. My mother-in-law immediately stopped whining and her voice became shrill. "Why? I don't need it. It was originally agreed that it would be this bitch Ivy. Just change it back." Boss Victor sneered and ordered the bodyguards to throw my mother-in-law out. "Do you think the Thompson family is still the same as when Henry was in charge? I'm just telling you. Not discussing with you. Now." My mother-in-law finally knew she was afraid. Boss Victor walked up to me and lingered his fat hand on my face. "Is your name Ivy?" "Mrs. Henry. If I were you, I would choose to keep Ivy. It's clear to everyone who's been struggling to support the Thompson family all these years and who has been dragging it down behind the scenes. However, you don't have a chance. I'm very satisfied with both of them." My mother-in-law struggled to rush to the bed and was beaten by the bodyguards until she vomited bitter water. But she still didn't want to leave. The unconscious Ryan woke up because of the noise. He was dazed for a moment at first. Then he felt the indescribable pain all over his body. Finally, having fulfilled Ryan's sigh, the unbearable memories came back. A tall man of 1.83 meters. Right in front of everyone. Curled up on the bed and burst into tears. My mother-in-law hurriedly tried to comfort him. But he ignored her completely. Until I spoke coldly and shouted angrily. "Ryan. You've already been fucked. Stop pretending to be a chaste and heroic man here. You." He was just about to speak when he suddenly stopped. I looked at the unspeakable struggle and resentment on his face and slowly continued his thought. "Why don't you scold me anymore? It's familiar. Right? After all, you used to say the same thing to me. And even worse things." Ryan stared at me coldly. "Sure enough. If the pain doesn't hit you, you don't know how it feels." 6. As soon as the commotion ended, my mother-in-law was thrown out by the bodyguards. Before leaving, Boss Victor said coldly, "Mrs. Henry, I hope you remember our agreement. If you dare to call the police, the Thompson family's company will go bankrupt directly. I've had my eye on your house for a long time. It's said that you have collected a lot of famous paintings. I'm very interested in going to have a look." So my mother-in-law quickly clenched the gemstone rings and imperial green jade bracelets in her hand and didn't say anything. Some people are like this. As long as their own interests are not affected, they seem very generous on the surface. But once their interests are involved, their selfish and hypocritical nature will be revealed. There were only 3 of us left in the room, me, Ryan, and Boss Victor. I don't know what Ryan thought of. And he was already shaking all over like I said and started crying again. Just as Boss Victor was about to reach out and touch me, I said coldly, "I'm pregnant with Leo's child. If you have the guts, touch me." Boss Victor paused, but still stopped his hand instinctively. "Aren't you the young mistress of the Thompson family? How could you have something to do with Leo? The Grant family controls the largest real estate industry in the country. The young master of the Grant family is not like Ryan, a lazy rich second generation. Since he became the president of the Grant family, in just 5 years, he has led the Grant family to enter the cultural and entertainment and high-end luxury industries, truly achieving all-round development. If I'm really Leo's woman, if he touches me, according to Leo's protective nature, The Black family needs to think carefully. Sure enough, he said slowly. As far as I know, Leo hasn't had a single woman all these years. How can you prove that the child in your belly is his? Then he looked at Ryan teasingly. And not the child of your nominal husband? Ryan was also confused by this sudden cuckold and looked stunned. They gave me to you. So naturally they also thought of giving me to others. I'm just a nominal couple with Ryan. In this life, the only man Ivy, have slept with is Leo. This child can only be his. In my previous life, because the company was on the verge of bankruptcy, I worked day and night. I simply didn't have the time to notice the existence of this little life. Thinking about it, the most likely time was the night when Ryan dragged me into Leo's hotel room. At that time, I had just married Ryan not long ago, and I had no precautions against him at all. It was only after I drank the drug that he revealed his true colors. I pleaded with him desperately to take me away. But all I got were a few slaps and beatings. He said, Ivy, you don't deserve to be my wife. You only deserve to be a bitch. I was in pain and fear. And there was not a single ray of light in the dark room. Until Leo, who was also drugged, came up to me. His burning breath sprayed on my trembling neck, but he only gently placed a kiss. He said, I won't touch you. Don't be afraid. However, that night, it was me who couldn't bear it more. I dragged him into the abyss in the last sec, and before he left, he wanted to take responsibility for me. But we both knew that it was just a calculation. I avoided him for a long time. It was not until Ryan gave me to Boss Victor again. I was played with on the bed until I was exhausted, with severe pain in my abdomen and blood flowing between my legs. Then I vaguely realized the fact that I was pregnant. Although this child was conceived in an ignoble way. But after all, it was a life that I was carrying. I originally planned to solve all these messy things and then give birth to and raise the child alone. But I didn't expect to encounter such a situation now. The child in my belly has actually saved my life now. I told Boss Victor several times and places where I had secret meetings with Leo for him to investigate. Soon, without a little sorry, he indeed ordered the bodyguards to untie me. Sorry, Miss Jong. I hope you can forget this little misunderstanding. Although Boss Victor was disgusting, he was very sensible. I straightened my back and left directly. It was not until I returned to my private apartment and closed the door. My tense back finally relaxed. Finally, heading till Feldleo, I was safe for the time being. 7 But it was only temporary. Now that Boss Victor has agreed, it's only a matter of time before the Thompson family recovers. By then, Ryan will be the first one not to let me go. I took a deep breath and dialed the number in my phone that had no name on it. I spoke directly without any transition. I'm pregnant. And it's your child. The person on the other end seemed to be stunned, and the slight sound of the current made me impatient. Finally, having fulfilled my hope, he said, Okay. What do you want? The breath that I had been holding in my heart finally came down. After I was drowned in my previous life, Leo somehow learned the news about this child. By the time he found me, I had already been sunk into the sea. I can't forget the way Leo went crazy when he received the diagnosis from the forensic doctor, saying that there were signs of miscarriage on me. After that, the Thompson family and the Black family were frantically targeted by Leo. Leo's grandfather even took the initiative to have me buried in the Grant family's ancestral grave. I was betting on the Grant family's concern for this child. Fortunately, having fulfilled my absai, I won the bet. I want 10 million. Leo agreed simply and straightforwardly. Okay. What else? Just 10 million for now. He chuckled and said, I'll ask my assistant to transfer it to you tomorrow. Then Miss Ivy should also take care of your body, and don't mistreat our child. The last sentence seemed like a threat. I took a deep breath and replied, This is also my child. General Manager Leo. Don't worry. He laughed again. But I must ensure the health of the child. Well, starting from tomorrow, I'll arrange bodyguards and a doctor for Miss Ivy. They need to follow you at all times until the child is born. Thinking of Ryan who might fight back at any time, I agreed without thinking too much. Anyway, having fulfilled my absai, it won't do me any harm. After hanging up the phone, my fingers were trembling slightly. But my first step had been completed. In my previous life, I accidentally discovered an emerging technology that was expected to change the automotive industry. But at that time, Ryan caused trouble. And the company went bankrupt too quickly. Before I could get my hands on it, I was drowned. After my death, that technology was taken advantage of by a small enterprise. And it developed into a leading enterprise in less than a year. For me, having fulfilled my obsession, a workaholic, I was extremely jealous. The next day, as soon as the money arrived in my account, I contacted the owner of the property rights of that technology. With my experience of working in the Thompson family, I easily obtained that technology without much effort. As long as I'm given a year, I can rival the Thompson family's company. But unexpectedly, a few days later, Leo came to see me. I thought he wanted to go back on his word. As a result, he threw a contract beside me and asked inferently, "Do you want the Thompson family's company?" I was shocked. After understanding the situation, I learned that. It turned out that after I left that day, Ryan was so desperate that he hit Boss Victor. It was said that the injury was in the private part and it was irreversible. Boss Victor directly threw the half-dead Ryan outside the Thompson family's door and announced the termination of the cooperation. The Thompson family's company went bankrupt. And the old house, famous paintings, and jewels were all confiscated to pay off the debts. Ryan and his mother moved from the villa to a rental house of less than 10 square meters. Leo knew that my relationship with the Thompson family had broken down. So he casually bought back the Thompson family's company. Leo was very straightforward and just said that he wanted me to give birth to the child healthily. And then he would hand over the company and leave. I didn't refuse either. Having the Thompson family's company would only make my plan go more smoothly. I informed the remaining employees in advance to stay and wait for my meeting. But I didn't expect that when I arrived downstairs of the company, I would meet my mother-in-law again. My mother-in-law was making a scene at the company gate, trying to get in. The moment she saw me, she stopped pestering and walked towards me with big steps. Raising her hand, Evie, you bitch. You still dare to show up." Her movement was too fast, and I wasn't prepared. I quickly stepped back, and suddenly my back hit a hard object. The hand that swung towards me was easily blocked. An angry voice sounded above my head. "Get out of the way." I looked up and quickly separated from Leo. Wasn't he supposed to be attending the new product launch conference? Why was he here? Perhaps my look was too obvious. Leo said inferently, "I was just passing by." So I didn't dwell on it anymore. But the way my mother-in-law looked at us was as if she was looking at adulterers. "Good for you, Ivy. I wondered why you didn't go home. So you saw that the Thompson family had fallen, and then climbed onto the high branch of the Grant family. You look down on us now. Do you still remember that you're the daughter-in-law of the Thompson family? I'm telling you, I'm here to block you today. The company has collapsed. And you'd better go home and take care of Ryan and me obediently." At this time, it was the rush hour for work. And there were a lot of people at the building entrance. My mother-in-law's voice wasn't very loud, but it still attracted a lot of onlookers. She became even more confident and actually tried to drag me home directly. Fortunately, having fulfilled my obsession, Leo and the bodyguards were all around me. My mother-in-law tried several times but failed. And then she started to spread rumors and slander me. "I think our Thompson family's company went bankrupt because of you. You bitch. You should have handed over the company to our Ryan to manage long ago." At this time, the onlooking employees couldn't hold back anymore. After I took over the Thompson family's enterprise, I had been working conscientiously. And the whole company was united and developed well. It was just that Ryan, this scoundrel, showed up. Although Ryan's father didn't give Ryan the right to manage the company before he died, he gave him a lot of shares. Because of these shares, Ryan changed the company's direction decisions several times and ran away whenever he caused trouble. It really made us suffer a great deal. The hot-tempered employees stepped forward one by one and told the truth. One by one, they blocked my mother-in-law until she blushed with shame. She wasn't an ignorant child and knew these truths very well. It was just that she was used to taking advantage of me and enjoying the benefits I brought. So she didn't want to think about these things. Finally, having fulfilled layer, she gave us a resentful look. She cursed. "You're all fickle people." Then she fled in a hurry. We all laughed together. And the employees were congratulating me on taking over the Thompson and family again. I smiled and looked up outside the crowd. Leo had already left. It seemed that he really was just passing by. However, he passed by at a very timely moment. I don't mind him passing by a few more times either. 9 After that, there was a period of peace. And the new project was progressing well. That day, when I was about to go home, I saw a large crowd gathered downstairs of the company. Look, look. This is Ivy. A bitch. A gold digger. I was still confused when slaps, paint, and garbage were all thrown at me. There were too many of them. And the bodyguards and security guards were powerless. I was angry and furious. I didn't understand why these people were blocking here and attacking me for no reason. Finally, having fulfilled my inside, when I was trying to avoid them and leave, I heard everything clearly from the voices cursing me. The flashlights followed and photographed my embarrassed appearance throughout the process. The live broadcast room that my assistant handed to me was full of insulting words about me. It turned out to be Ryan. After he woke up, he tried to commit suicide by jumping into the river and left a suicide note in his online account, fabricating his infatuated persona. He said that because I loved his rich, second-generation status and money, he gave me everything he had, even the management right of his own company. However, for some unknown reason, the Thompson family's company went bankrupt overnight, and I also disappeared. He and his mother squeezed into a rental house of less than 10 square meters and worked every day to pay off the debts. And when he saw me again, I was lying in the arms of a big shot and was already pregnant. But he said that he didn't hate me. Instead, he hoped that I could have a better life and respected my choice. At the end of his life, he gave me all the money he had earned, a total of 31,542 yuan, in the form of a voluntary transfer. He only wished that he could see me in heaven and bless me to be safe. Unfortunately, having fulfilled Layad's sigh, Ryan didn't die. That river was in a busy area. He was fished out less than a minute after he jumped in. But he had a brain injury and had been lying in the hospital without waking up. It was Ryan's mother who found these things when she was tidying up her son's belongings. In a fit of anger, she posted them online, wanting to get justice for her son. After that, this matter quickly fermented on the internet. Some netizens found out my identity information from just a few words, and also found out that I had indeed had a pregnancy checkup in the hospital. They believed even more in the lies fabricated by Ryan. I was actually laughed at by the words, "the god of pure love," on the internet. After calling the police quickly controlled the scene, and the previously angry crowd quickly quieted down. I pushed aside Leo's bodyguards and stood in front of the crowd step by step with red paint all over me. Someone cursed defiantly, "Gold digger." But he was intimidated by my cold gaze and stepped back. Gold digger? What era is this? You still only know how to believe the rumors on the internet. A bunch of mobs. The surveillance cameras are also there. I've noted down each and every one of you today. You all just wait for the court summons. And also, I snatched the phone that was live broadcasting and faced the camera. I will settle the score with all those who have spread rumors about me on the internet. I hope you all can open your eyes and don't believe those stupid remarks easily. After saying that calmly, I left. Sitting back in the car, I was also very scared. I looked at myself in the rearview mirror, in a sorry state, and my eyes quickly turned red. Obviously, having fulfilled obviously, I had done nothing. But these strangers easily believed the gold digger persona that Ryan had created for me just based on a few words. They sympathized with Ryan in various ways and even triggered a gender dispute with their own experiences. It was really disgusting and hateful. But I couldn't fall. Since Ryan dared to spread rumors, then I would expose these rumors. 10 The red paint couldn't be washed off. When I saw Leo again, I had already cut my hair into a capable short style. He was slightly surprised. But he quickly shifted his gaze and put down a hard drive. This is the video in Boss Victor's hand. I think you might need it. I happily took it. Although my strong performance in the live broadcast yesterday made some sensible comments appear on the internet. But my mother-in-law started a live broadcast that night. She cried and sobbed, saying that she just wanted an explanation for her son. Ryan, who was unconscious in the hospital bed, seemed more persuasive. My company was also seriously affected. A large number of netizens began to boycott our products and demanded that I support the elderly and return the company to Ryan. Just when the public opinion was getting more and more intense, I released the video of Ryan being played with. Without my saying more, the persona that Ryan had carefully created was shattered. The god of pure love turned out to be a gigolo, quickly topped the IBO headlines. Ryan couldn't stay in bed anymore and took the initiative to invite me to meet him in the hospital. 11. You know that there are still a lot of people on the internet who believe that you're a gold digger. If you're willing to give me 20 of the company's shares, I'm willing to clarify this matter. Ryan was standing by the window in his hospital gown, and he clearly had no problems at all. But he still pretended to be sick and even received a lot of rewards during the live broadcast. I wonder how those netizens would feel when they found out that their little support had actually helped a liar. I sneered. Clarify? How to clarify? Clarify that I once worked hard to support the Thompson family and the Thompson family's company. But you treated me like a commodity and sent me for a deal? Include the fact that as your wife, I was slandered by you as Ryan's father's illegitimate daughter? Ryan's face turned pale, and he said, sinister lie. These don't matter. But if you let the rumors continue to spread, your company will go bankrupt sooner or later. Are you sure you want to waste time with me here? No. I didn't want to waste time at all. I reached out and adjusted my headdress. Then continued. You admit on the internet that you spread rumors first. And then I'll give it to you. Otherwise, if you wait too long and the stock market shrinks, I won't be responsible for it. He got anxious and reluctantly agreed. I made another request. Then admit it now. And bring your mother with you. Can you stop being so difficult? I shouted back. How do I know if you lacked one way in front of me and another behind my back? He gritted his teeth and reluctantly said okay. Together with his mother. He recounted everything from the time I married into the Thompson family, to the company's bankruptcy, and then to the two of them plotting the will and cyberbullying me. He asked me to pay the deposit first, and I obediently did so. It was as if I didn't see the shrewd and cunning light in his eyes. I laughed coldly and took off the miniature recorder hidden in my hair accessory. You all saw it. This is the true face of the so-called god of pure love, in your mouths. Ryan was greatly surprised and quickly groped for his phone. He immediately saw the live broadcast I had started on the homepage push. No, it's not like this. Everyone is misunderstood. His mother was so scared that she kept sending messages on her phone. But all the netizens had already seen the truth clearly. And public opinion was one-sided. She slumped to the ground feebly, muttering, It's over. It's over. But I wasn't done yet. I opened the door, and the police rushed in and took the two of them into custody, charging them with the crimes of defamation and fraud of company property and taking them to the police station. Everything ended happily. My stigma was cleared. The company continued to operate, and even gained popularity because of this incident, with a significant increase in sales. It can be considered a blessing in disguise. Although some netizens still clung to the fact that I was once given as a plaything to a big shot after the truth was revealed. They said I was unclean and disgusting. But I didn't care. My heart and my actions are as clear as a mirror. 12 At the trial, his mother took on all the charges and went to prison. Ryan firmly denied faking his coma and claimed that he knew nothing about the live broadcast content. He was released after being detained for a few days. But for some reason, his temporary residence was suddenly exposed. And many people who had been bullied by him before came to his door. He was beaten black and blue and didn't dare to go home. One day, after I finished my work, the bodyguard took a leave of absence, and I arranged for my assistant to go home early. The security of the apartment was good, and the lights were not dim. But I always had an inexplicable sense of panic, making me quicken my pace. Unexpectedly, the moment I opened the door, There was a chill behind me. Before I could turn my head, I lost consciousness. When I opened my eyes again, what I saw was a dilapidated cabin. I didn't know where it was sailing, and it was shaking violently. My hands were tied to the vertical pole of the ship's hull, and my phone was not with me. Just as I was trying to find a way to untie the ropes, Ryan opened the door and came in. He looked like he had been wandering for a long time, with his beard and hair in a mess. Only his eyes shot out a sinister light when he saw me wake up. Ivy, guess where we are now? In fact, from the moment I woke up and saw this familiar cabin, I was already scared. The memory of being drowned in the high seas in my previous life had always been a pain that I couldn't forget. Ryan, I can give you whatever you want. If you throw me into the sea, you're committing a crime. Don't you want to spend your whole life in prison? Ryan laughed coldly. He grabbed my hair and slammed my head against the cabin wall, saying sinister lie. I have nothing left. Do you think I care about that now? The pain in my head instantly brought tears to my eyes. I also understood that you can't reason with someone who has no desire to live. In the following days, I was tortured like a beast. Just like those last days at the end of my previous life. But I wasn't willing to give up. Finally, heading to Feldley, I used a rusty iron sheet to cut through the ropes. When Ryan wasn't paying attention, I grabbed a lifebuoy and jumped into the sea. For a full 36 hours, I was on the verge of passing out. I kept thinking about the phone call I made quickly before I was knocked out and taken away. Who did I call? Would he notice something was wrong and find out that I was missing? But in the vast ocean, how could he find me? The more I thought about it, the more disappointed I became. I held the swimming ring tightly with both hands, and didn't dare to relax. But my physical strength was almost exhausted. I seemed to see my father standing in front of our old house, smiling and waving at me. I don't know how long it had passed. But finally, a white ship appeared on the sea surface. When its light shone on me, I completely passed out. When I woke up again, I was already in the hospital. And surprisingly, Leo was by my bedside. There was a faint dark blue under his eyes. And one of his arms was still in a bandage. He helped me lean against the bedside and naturally brought water and fed me. Thank you for saving me. Leo didn't say anything. He suddenly wiped the corner of my eye with his finger pad and said, "Don't be afraid. You're back now. I'm here." The anxiety of the past few days finally came to an end. I sobbed uncontrollably on his shoulder. Leo told me that after he received my call that day, he sensed something was wrong and immediately went to my apartment to find me. But the apartment door was wide open, and my phone was lying on the ground. He contacted the police and found the surveillance footage of Ryan entering and leaving the community. I was knocked out by him, carried away, and taken to the ship. Later, they found the ship but discovered that I wasn't on it. Then they searched and rescued me in the sea. Leo's tone was calm, but I knew, once the ship sails out of the territorial sea, there will be no way to find clues. The so-called finding the ship and then locating me was definitely not as simple as he said. We clearly had such a wrong start. We tried our best to equate all relationships with clear interests. But what he gave me was always more than what I gave. Was it really because he cherished this child? Or was there some other reason? I already had the answer in my heart. 13 Ryan was sent to prison and sentenced for the crime of attempted murder. In the first month of his imprisonment, he begged to see me. "What do you want to see me for?" As a result, he drugged me and sent me to someone else's bed. I instantly raised my eyes, and his gaze shot straight at me. Clearly, heading fulfilled say. It wasn't the Ryan of this life, but Ivy, I'm so happy that you recognized me. You still remember this name. I often think about our childhood, before you came to the Thompson family. I frowned and said, "Why are you bringing this up?" His tone became urgent. "No. I didn't mean to make you angry, Ivy. I also regret becoming like this now. I once said that I would always protect you. But you broke your promise. Didn't you?" That was. His eyes flickered. And he hesitated before saying, "My mother told me that you were my father's illegitimate daughter. At that time, I believed it. But I really regret it. Ivy. We once loved each other. I was also deceived. I sneered. Even in this situation, he was still only able to find excuses to justify himself. Deceived? Were you also deceived when you tried to kill me and when you gave me to others? Rian. I really looked down on you. I will never forgive you in my life. I turned around and left. Ryan's crazy pleas and roars couldn't make me turn back. Later, it was said that Ryan died in prison. A year later, my company became a leading enterprise in the automotive industry. Leo proposed to me as expected. I gave birth to a beautiful daughter and had a warm little home that I decorated with my own hands. In this life, there are so many things for me to feel, cherish, and love. I don't hate this world. On the contrary, I'm grateful that it gave me a chance to start over, allowing me to get out of the shadow of my previous life with all this love. The end.